In this video, we're going to try our hand at making an almond wine. Ever noticed on YouTube that there are hardly any, if any, YouTube videos on showing you how to use a nut to make a wine? Well, we're going to try and find out why that is. If there's a problem, we're going to see what the problem is. If there's a solution to that problem, we're going to see what that solution is as well. Hi, I'm Charles and welcome to DIY Fermentation, your site for doing fermentation on a shoestring budget. Now then, to make our almond wine, we will be using the following. We're going to be using 1 cup of almonds, unsalted, basically the kind you find over in the bakery section with the spices and all that other good stuff. Whether they're whole, chopped, sliced, that's entirely up to you. We're going to be using 1 pound, or in this case, 15 ounces of golden raisins. That's sultanas for some of you guys. They don't have 1 pound packages anymore, so this is as close as I can get. We're going to be using 5 cups of sugar. We're going to be using the juice and zest of 2 lemons. We're going to be using a bit of homemade yeast nutrient. If you don't have any, you can use the store-bought kind. If you don't have that, you can always watch my video on homemade yeast nutrients. This time around, I'm going to be using Red Star Premier Blanc wine yeast. It's an arbitrary decision. I decided to go for the higher alcohol content that this variant provides. Again, you can use whatever you got. And if you don't have wine yeast, the old standby, Plan B, still works. I'm going to be using 2 straining bags, one for the nuts and one for the raisins. I will need 1 gallon of water. That might be increased to 1 gallon and 1 cup of water. We'll see how that goes. We'll need a wide mouth fermenter because we're going to be using straining bags. We're going to need something that's got a wide opening so we can get our bags down in there. Now this one is optional, but if you want to use pectin enzyme with this one, please feel free. Later on, we're going to need a 1 gallon fermenter, jug, demijohn, carboy, take your pick. You'll need an airlock with stopper. Now, if you don't have a fermenter that has a built-in airlock, then you'll need an airlock with stopper to use with that. It would be helpful if you had a hydrometer with testing tubes so you can determine your starting gravity and your ending gravity so that you can determine what your alcohol by volume is going to be at the very end. And of course, using your sanitizer of choice, make sure all of your equipment has been properly cleaned and sanitized. All of this equipment, of course, you can find with the Amazon links in the description section below the video. Also, this is what we're going to be using to make this wine. Now, the very first thing we need to do is that we need to finely chop up our almonds. Now, you can either do it like this, or if you've got one, you can do it like this. And now then, with our nuts finely chopped up, the next thing we want to do is to get them in a straining bag. With that having been done, the next thing we want to do is we want to rough chop our raisins, aka sultanas, so we can get those in a straining bag. And we're going to leave this loosely tied because we need to add our zest. Now, by using your favorite means of zesting, let's go ahead and start zesting our lemons. And that's 2. And let's go ahead and get those in the straining bag. Now, I've taken the opportunity to pour off about 2 cups of water to make room for that possibly up to 5 cups of sugar we're going to be adding later on. And the next thing I want to do is I want to take our chopped up almonds and add enough water to cover. No need to be precise. Go ahead and put our lid back on. And we want to bring that up to a simmer. In our other pot, we want to go ahead and add in the remainder of our water. And put our lid back on. And we're going to bring that up to a boil. Well, now that our water has come to a boil, we can take our raisins and zest, add those to the mix, put our lid back on, and turn off the heat. In pot number 2, we are still going to let our chopped up almonds simmer for the next hour. Okay, it's been an hour. Let's take off our turn off the heat to our almond mixture and take the lid off of our raisin zest mixture. And I want to do this. One, I want to take 4 cups of our sugar. Let's go ahead and add that into this pot. And let's go ahead and incorporate that. And with respect to our almond mixture, there is, and you will not really be able to see it unless I get it in really, really close, there are a few droplets of oil floating on the water. And therein lies the problem that most people find when they're trying to make wine from nuts. Nuts have oil. But as you can see, the oil is floating on the top. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to remove that bag. Let a little bit of a drain off here. And what we really want to do, let's squeeze out a little bit. We are done with that. And with respect to the oil floating on the top, what we're going to do is this. We're going to let this cool down. Let a bit more of that oil rise to the top. And then before we add it to our mixture, we're going to siphon beneath the layer of oil the liquid to get that into our pot. So we're just going to let this cool down, which is the same thing we're going to end up doing with our raisin mixture. Let's go ahead and put the lid back on, which is still fairly hot. So we're going to let this cool down for the next several hours, basically overnight because it is kind of late. And then we'll pick this up in the morning. All right, getting back to the problem at hand, we need to figure a way of removing the oil that's on the surface layer of our almond water. And we do know that if you try and skim it off, that really isn't going to work. So there's got to be another way of doing it. And I'm thinking perhaps the easier way of doing it would be to siphon off everything below the oil layer. It's not actually a whole layer. It's like the small oil droplets floating on top of the water. So what I've decided to try and do is that I'm going to siphon, do this right, I'm going to use my auto siphon and siphon below that layer. And I'm going to, while I'm at it, run it through a strainer and then collect the results of my effort. And if I can do this with one hand, all right, let's tilt it. Let's insert it. And I've got to get the pump action started while keeping this at an angle, which ain't easy. If I had an assistant, it would be. So let's see. I just want to get it started without making a huge mess. Actually, I think what I'm going to end up probably doing is foregoing the strainer for now. And let's just go ahead and get a hose inserted. Let's do it this way. Give us a little bit more control. And still got the same problem, but at least I got a hand now. Let's go ahead and carefully begin the pumping action. All right, got that started. Let's elevate our mixture a bit. Let gravity do the work for us. And let's slow it down a bit. And let's just stop it there. All right. With that having been done, again, without making a mess, let's go ahead and finish the process of getting our cup filled. And let's get this out the way before it creates a mess. All right. So I've left most of the oil in the pot, and in the cup. Let's have a quick look-see. Okay. I think that worked pretty well. Let's see if I can get a picture of that. We're going to go ahead and strain our juice, and we're going to go ahead and add that to our raisins. Now, in all honesty, and let's see if I can get a picture of this, the raisins themselves, I mean, they, after that steeping in hot water, I mean, they did release a little bit of their own oils as well. So it's not a perfect world no matter what. You're going to get what you're going to get. So it's not like you're adding more oil than what was already there. So we're going to go ahead and strain this. I'm actually going to pour it over the raisin bag. Not that it really matters. Okay, there's a little bit more the almond nuts in that mixture. I'm going to go ahead and put my cover back on this one. Now, to save a little bit of time, I've already transferred our sweetened almond juice water into the fermenter. And I've left the straining bag behind, We're going to add that later, but right now we want to bring our level up to 1 gallon. Which is about right there for me. And with that having been done, with a freshly sanitized spoon, take the opportunity, let's go ahead and give that a good vigorous stir. And we now want to take our straining bag and go ahead and add that to our fermenter. Any remaining wine to be, go ahead and add that in. Now, if you are using a pectin enzyme, now would be the time to use it. Simply follow the instructions from your manufacturer and use it accordingly. If you're not, you can go ahead and press on. But for the moment, I'm just going to put a cover on mine while I get ready for the next step. Let's go ahead and juice our lemons and add those to the mix. Now would be a very good time to take our hydrometer reading, and my reading came in at 1.102. I don't think there's going to be any need to add any additional sugar. It looks like the 4 cups of sugar we added is going to be spot on for me. Now is the time I want to go ahead and add in our homemade yeast nutrient. I want to give that a good vigorous stir. And following that, we want to go ahead and add our 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. However you want to add it is entirely up to you. If you want to bloom your yeast, feel free. If you want to add more yeast, feel free. But that's all I'm going to do. Put my cap back on. It is now time to label our creation. We are making almond wine. We started it on this date, and our original gravity reading was 1.102. Now then, once a day for the next 3 days, we want to go ahead and give our musk a very vigorous stir. Help incorporate some oxygen into the musk and help out the yeast a bit. After that, you can pretty much just leave it alone. We're going to let this sit for a total of 5 or 6 days. There's no hard, fast number on it. And let it go through primary fermentation, after which we are going to rack it into our carboy for secondary. And since we have slightly more than 1 gallon, when we do begin the process of racking this into secondary, we want to make sure that we rack everything under the top layer, about a good, 1/4 inch, to make sure that we don't bring in any oils that might have survived the racking into the primary fermenter in the first place. That'll help cut down on the oils that you have a problem with when you're using nuts with wine. And now we'll see this wine again, probably in another 1 year's time, unless something goes wrong, in which case I'll do a video on it. But for the time being, that's that. If you like what you see here, please click on the subscribe button. Better yet, become a member. Better yet, Patreon, to help support this channel so I can continue to do more videos in the future. Until then, see ya.